Before I start, I just want to thank Lisa and Gina and everybody with the Children's Cardiomyopathy Foundation for not only inviting me today, but this has been really amazing. And I've been a patient now for 13 years, and I've benefited so much from just sitting there and listening to the speakers. In the morning, I can't wait for the afternoon, and I can't wait to see where this goes. I know this is the first year they've done this, and I think it's really incredible to get patients together and connected, hear from doctors, and thank you. It's been really, really good. So I'm going to talk about my life and about my diagnosis, and 13 years later is where I am now. But the most important thing, there's probably some things I'm going to talk about that you might be able to relate to. Some patients in the room might have similar things that have happened to them or have had similar feelings. Some people might not. But the most important thing and the most important message I want to get across is getting your life to be as normal as possible. And I think in 13 years, I've been able to do that. And there's probably some people that are newly diagnosed that haven't gotten there yet. And I wasn't there when I first got diagnosed. And the most important thing I want you to take away is that you can get there and you can live a very normal life with some limitations with cardiomyopathy. So first I'm going to talk about my story. I have a few slides. I'm not a huge PowerPoint person, but there are a few slides just with some pictures of myself and kind of just so you can see over the years. But when I was 15, 16 years old, basketball was my whole life. I had literally no balance in life at all. I was a basketball player. It's the only thing I cared about. It's the only thing I did. I had no other hobbies. I didn't like playing an instrument, didn't play other sports, did not care about anything else. And that's probably not the most healthy way to be, but that's the way I was. And my goal was to play college basketball. So I spent every single day of my life, from the beginning of high school, going through high school to achieve that goal. Between working out, playing on all these different AAU teams, going to strength and conditioning classes, doing everything so that, I was going to play basketball in college. And as I went through high school, I started to get better, and then, I started to get recruited. So I had all these college coaches were calling my house, sending letters, calling my parents. Each coach is trying to, say why their school is the best place for me to go. And that was a really, really good feeling for me at the time, because I was like, okay, my dream and all this hard work I put in, it's about to come true. Between my junior and senior year of high school, my dad, take you back a little, my dad started the basketball camp when my brother and I were really young. And we grew up going to the basketball camp. It was like the 2 best weeks of the summer. Yeah, that's me playing basketball. See, I'm not great with PowerPoint, but yeah, that's me at 17 playing basketball. I didn't even know I hit the button. We went to this basketball camp, and, once we were too old to play at the camp, we became counselors at the camp. So this particular summer, it's between my junior and senior year. I'm 17 years old. My brother was 13. The camp was at the end of the summer. It was Wednesday night. We decided that the next morning we were going to wake up early. We were going to go over to a local prep school, and we were going to work out at like 6 in the morning so we could go to the camp and then just kind of chill out for the rest of the night. So the next morning, Thursday, August 24th, 2006, we woke up 6 in the morning. We had one of our friends come pick us up, drove us over to the school, and he put us through like this hour-and-a-half basketball workout, and everything was completely fine. Nothing out of the ordinary, nothing that I did that stood out. The typical intense workout where, I got my heart rate up really high and, everything seemed fine. After the workout ended, we hopped back in his car. He drove us to, I'm from Connecticut, a town called Wallingford, so the Wallingford Parks and Recreation Center, where this basketball camp was being held. And we walked in, it was like 8 o'clock in the morning. I changed my shirt. I said hi to my dad, ordered my lunch, and that's the last thing I remember from that day. So 2.5 hours later, it's, about 10:30. I'm sitting on the bleachers. My best friend was sitting next to me. I had a bunch of kids that were attending the camp all sitting around me. And I just basically face planted on the ground and went into sudden cardiac arrest. So as I'm sure most people in this room know, the only way you can survive cardiac arrest is you need immediate CPR and you need to be quickly shocked by a defibrillator. So nobody in the camp knew what to do. My brother was in there. He was 13. He didn't know what to do. My dad didn't know what to do. We had a trainer at the camp, and she froze in the moment and didn't know what to do. And I was in full-blown cardiac arrest. And this building that I was in didn't have an AED. Park and Recreation Center held a bunch of youth camps, adult workout classes, everything that was going on in town, you name it, it was there, and they didn't have an AED. So those two factors made my chances to survive very, very slim. I got really lucky that, they did call 911, and when they called 911, there was a guy in the building next door. He got the call on his pager. He was a volunteer EMT, sitting at his desk doing his regular job. 911 call came through. He got it on his pager, looked at it, recognized the address, came over, saw me on the ground, and I was agonal gasping. I was blue. My dad, my brother, my best friend, and all these people are just looking at me like helpless, not knowing if I was going to live or die. And he did CPR, and he did it perfectly. He saved my life, saved my brain. Eventually, the ambulance got there. They came in with the AED. They shocked me, and, I went to the hospital where in the ambulance I arrested again, and, eventually made it to the hospital. And I was unconscious for 2 days, so I don't have any memory for 2 days after that. But, the first night, and I know there's parents here, and I'm sure you all can relate to this, the cardiologist who was at the time ended up being my pediatric cardiologist. She told my parents I had something wrong with my heart, and she listed all these conditions. She listed the cardiomyopathies. She listed the long QT syndrome, and she said, we got to figure out what it is. And my dad basically said that she was wrong. He's like, no, like my 17-year-old son is healthy. He doesn't have any symptoms. He's in shape. He's an athlete. It's not possible for him to have something wrong with his heart. And as a family, we had no clue that, heart disease could affect a young person, someone that seems healthy. And, obviously we didn't know that there are genetic diseases that get passed down. So, eventually I became conscious. And the first thing I remember from being in the hospital is they put me through all the tests that we've been talking about all morning. So EKGs, echoes, I had a cardiac catheterization, I had a cardiac MRI. The cardiac MRI was the worst. I don't sit still well, and every picture that they tried to take, I moved. I was in that thing for like 4 hours, and it was miserable. But I eventually came out of the, all the tests, and they diagnosed me with hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. So my cardiologist came into me one day and said, I got good and bad news for you. She said, the good news is you went into cardiac arrest and you survived. And then she gave me statistics and the survival rate to cardiac arrest. And, not having CPR, not having an AED there made my chances very slim. And she said, the bad news is you'll never play competitive basketball again. And I was 17, and like I said before, I was pretty small-minded 17-year-old. I knew nothing about basketball. And I had one dream in my life, and it got taken away from me in that moment. And I've met a lot of patients already today, and I just want to say this about it. I understand how hard it is to have something like that taken away from you. And my own personal philosophy on it is, obviously you never wish someone to go into cardiac arrest, but I think me going into cardiac arrest made it easier for me. Because a doctor stood in front of me and said, hey, you almost died. Statistically, you probably should have died. You can't play basketball. So I'm like, okay, that hurts. And I had all those feelings of depression and sadness and anger and frustration. But I also had someone tell me, oh, you shouldn't have made it. So it helped me put it in perspective, whereas I know there's patients here that get diagnosed off a test, and it's very much more confusing to them because the disease has literally never affected them. And I hope that my story can kind of put that in perspective for you. And that's why you're not able to play, is because I was in a situation where I almost died, and your doctors are trying to prevent you from being in that situation. So, they put it in an implanted defibrillator, and the guy who put it in, the name is going to be very familiar to a lot of people in this room, Dr. Iyer, who I know is at CHOP now, was at Connecticut Children's Medical Center before he was there. So he put in my ICD, and he was my electrophysiologist for about 5 years before he moved down to Philadelphia. And then they sent me home. And I walked in the house, and I remember a couple days into it, I'm sitting there, and I had this huge fear. And I'm going to be completely honest about kind of all of the feelings I had. I had this fear in the beginning that I was going to go into cardiac arrest again, and I wasn't going to survive. And I came from a setting where I was in the hospital, and I had all these machines hooked up to me. And anytime something beeped, a nurse was in there. Anytime I had a question, I could hit a button, and I hit that button a lot. and a nurse was in there or a doctor, and I felt safe. And I went home, and I didn't feel safe anymore. My parents, I love them. They're not medical professionals. I don't know if they would have known what to do if I went into cardiac arrest again in that moment. And something that helped me get past this fear, and obviously I don't have that fear anymore. My family got CPR certified and AED certified, and having that peace of mind for my family, knowing that they would be able to help me if something happened, kind of helped me get past that fear of, I'm going to go into cardiac arrest again, and no one's going to be around that knows what to do. So this is a picture of me in the hospital. That's back when wearing those white tank tops was cool. And then this is, don't judge my personal style. The guy to my right is the guy that did the CPR, and those are 3 of the paramedics that were there in the ambulance that saved my life. We were able to go to the firehouse about a week after it happened and meet all of them. And every time I look at this picture, I'm just so happy I changed my sense of style, because that's really bad. One of the things that I did early on, and my mom had me do this, and we have an American Heart Association office in our hometown, and she came and told me one day that we were going to go over there, and the other teenagers in the room can relate to this. Whenever your mom says to do something, you just want to do the opposite, so I said no. But I eventually agreed to it, and I remember going to this meeting and talking to them, and that's how I got involved in raising awareness of heart disease. And we signed up to be volunteers and spokespeople for them. But that meeting made me realize that my life was more than just basketball. It helped me realize that I had a greater purpose in life. And for me, it was this, and not every patient necessarily feels the need to do that, and that's fine. But I thought basketball defined me, and it made me who I was as a person. And going to the meeting and sitting there with them helped me realize that although basketball is a big part of my life, there was so much more in my life that I was going to be able to live. At 17, never being able to play basketball again, and that meeting helped me do that. So one of the things I struggled with early on, so typical high school kid, did not care about my diet. I ate whatever I wanted, fast food, dessert, potato chips, didn't matter. I burned so many calories working out. I still felt like I looked great. I still was in shape. My metabolism was great. After my cardiac arrest, I was afraid to get my heart rate up. So I was afraid to run. I was afraid to work out. I was afraid to do anything to possibly make my ICD go off or make myself go into cardiac arrest again. I was not afraid to keep eating. So naturally, I started to gain weight. And I'm a senior in high school now, and I go from a really fit athlete to now I'm self-conscious about the way I look. I'm afraid to take my shirt off in front of my friends. During swimming class and in gym class, we did swimming, and be honest, I used my heart issue as an excuse not to go do swimming classes. I didn't want to take off my shirt in front of my classmates. And, I started to feel like now my self-confidence is going down, and I'm getting, my low self-esteem, and, I didn't feel good about myself every day when I woke up in the morning. And this lasted for a while because it took me a long time to trust that I could be active. And the way I learned it is I went to my doctor, and I explained the situation, and she told me about cardiac rehab. And I signed up for cardiac rehab, and I'll be completely honest about cardiac rehab. I went to the first class, and I absolutely hated it because I was 17, and I was the youngest person in the room by about 50 years. And I hated it so much because I'll go from training to be a college athlete to walking on a treadmill at the speed of 2. And them saying, okay, now you can lift weights, and handing me 5-pound dumbbells. And I'm like, I don't belong here. But I stuck it out, and I did it. And cardiac rehab changed my life. It helped me move on to learn my body, learn what I could do, learn that I could get my heart rate up. I'm not necessarily going to go into cardiac arrest every time my heart rate goes up. My ICD isn't going to start shocking me every time I start working out. And I was doing it in front of people that were trained and that were ready to help if something did happen. So cardiac rehab really helped me kind of, take that step and learn how to work out and learn how to be an active, normal person, which I always wanted to be. The other thing I did was I learned a lot about balance. And I know one of the presentations I just, you heard in the adult track, talked about balance. And, balance, especially when it came to eating. Now, to this day, I do not eat a perfect diet. I don't I don't eat like a diet that you see like the parent. I don't do that. But I do have a balanced diet. I eat pretty healthy, but I do have my cheat meals. I have the things that I love to eat, my guilty pleasures, but I have balance with it. And I think it's really, really important as a patient to learn how to have balance. Have balance in what you do, have balance in what you eat, have balance in everything that you're doing. And I think if you can learn to have that balance, you can still enjoy the things in life that you enjoy while also keeping yourself safe. So after college, I decided that I wanted to coach basketball. And this is the way I got into it. I went to college, a school called Quinnipiac University in Connecticut, Division I school, and I became a student manager. And I know there's kids in this room that have had sports taken away from them. And not everybody can do this. Some people just kind of want to push that sport out of their life. I personally didn't. And I became a manager for the basketball team. People told me to do it. I didn't do it on my own. And I hated the idea of it because I always had the perception that, okay, the student manager can't play. He's not good enough. And I learned that it's not that at all. And being a student manager helped me decide that I wanted to coach basketball. It helped me be involved in something that I love. It helped me feel like I was part of the team. So I did that for 4 years in college, and I was lucky enough to get an assistant coaching job right out of college. And I coached college basketball for 6 years, and I loved it. I got out of it for reasons, that I'll talk about in a little bit. But, coaching is a great way to be involved in sport once you have sport taken away from you. And you see even the athletes, the true thing about sport is sport ends no matter what for everybody, no matter how far you go. And you see a lot of athletes that get out of, when they're done playing, they coach. And just because it happens to you at a younger age than you want it to, you can still be involved and coach. So while I was coaching, I had an ICD replacement that we talked about a little bit before, and I had a minor complication with it, and I ended up having a surgery that was a really rare thing. I'm not going to get into detail about it, but my mom took this picture of me, and I don't get what her purpose was taking this picture. So I love my mom, especially. We go donate AEDs together, and we take a picture, and she has to get like 10 copies of the picture, look at them all, edit them, crop them, and before I'm allowed to post it, and then she takes this picture of me. I don't get how that's okay. But, have an open heart. I'm going to just get off that. You guys don't need to look at that. But, frustrating thing for me, I was 25 years old. I got myself now to a point where I felt great. I felt really good about myself. I was active. I was doing all the things I love to do. And then that happened. And I was on the couch for 6 weeks, and I couldn't move, couldn't do anything. And I remember I would go out and try. I was coaching at Quinnipiac at the time. And I would go to practice, and I'd come home, and I'd need to sleep for like 4 hours. And I would walk out to the car, and I'd be tired. And again, I was like, okay, here I am at step one again. I have to start over. And, it was really hard for me, but I was able to kind of believe in this process, I guess. I know that's kind of a cliche thing to say, but believe that, as slow as it is, you're going to get there. And one of the things that's really helped me is learning that heart disease is about you as an individual. And I'm naturally came from an athletic background, so I talk a lot about being active and working out. So this is the example I'm going to use, but I think it kind of goes for anything. I work out with my younger brother all the time. He does not have the disease. He played Division I college basketball. I can't keep up with my brother. He's a better shape. He's stronger. He's faster, right? He trained at a really high level. When you train for sport, you're naturally you're just competing against everybody. When you train with heart disease, you're not. It's about you and what you can do. And that's what's really helped me kind of come to terms with it. Another story, one of my close friends played basketball in the NBA, won a championship with Michael Jordan. We coached together for a long time. We used to work out together. Can't keep up with that guy. He's played in the NBA. He's a ridiculous athlete. But what's helped me is realize that it's about you, me as an individual, you as a patient, what you can do, and not about what everybody else can do. And that's really helped me kind of move along and learn how to, to live this normal life. Last couple of points I'm going to make. First thing, it's really important to be honest with people. Obviously, people in your family know about your disease, but I think it's really important to be honest with your friends, your significant others, and just put it out there for them. I mean, this is a real disease that you have. There are real things that could happen because of this disease, and people around you need to know. They need to know that, for me, my friends know that I went into cardiac arrest, and there is a chance I go into cardiac arrest again while I'm with them. And they know what to do. They would know how to call 911, what to say, how to do CPR. So I think it's really important to like make sure that people around you know how to react and are familiar with your disease. And for the young people here, like if you have friends that kind of push you away, then they're just not really your friends, because you want to surround yourself with people that support you for who you are. You know, I'm going to talk real brief about In a Heartbeat. So we founded In a Heartbeat, and this is my life now. I got out of college coaching to run In a Heartbeat full time, and I coach high school basketball now. It's like my little part-time job, so I get to do both. I'm really lucky. But we founded it. If there's any way we could help anybody in this room, I'll talk briefly on what we do. We donate AEDs. We donate them to schools, businesses, organizations, families. We do training. We help set up emergency action plans. We donate money for hypertrophic cardiomyopathy research projects. We try to do some support for patients. We're starting a cardiac screening program in Connecticut right now, so we can screen young kids to find out, do some primary prevention to see if they have heart disease. So, you know, this is a picture this year. We donated 105 right now. We'll be up to 118 by the end of the year, but that's our 100th donation. Something we were really proud of, and thank you. And then we've donated $25,000 for research, with another $10,000 to $12,000 check going somewhere this year. So I am a patient of Dr. Marin's, and they've supported us with, you know, and obviously I'm familiar with all his research, but you know, if there's any way we can help, you know, I'm going to just put my contact information on there. Couple things. If In a Heartbeat could help anybody in their local community individually, take a picture of it, you know, write down my information. Doctors that are here, if you have patients that you think need a mentor or need someone that's kind of gotten themselves to the point where they have a pretty normal life, you know, take my card, give out my cards in your office. You know, I one of the things I look back on and say, it would have been cool to talk to like a 25-year-old guy that was going through, you know, what I was going through, and had already done it and had some experience. So, and patients that are here, take my cell. That's my email, my cell. Text me, email me. I think it's great to connect with other patients. So I'm just going to finish by saying this, and I'm happy to answer any questions, you know, in front of everybody, or if you have a private question, you're more than ask me. You know, I'll be here for the rest of the day. But being diagnosed with heart disease is scary. It was scary for me, and that's normal. It's still scary for me at times. It isn't as much anymore, but it's still in the back of my head. And I think that's something that stays with you. But it's going to cause anxiety. It's going to cause fear. But it's really important to do a few things. It's really important to, number one, trust your doctors. Listen to your doctors. They have more scientific and just overall knowledge of these diseases than anybody. And they do studies, they do things, and they know things that nobody else knows, and that's why they do what they do. So listen to your doctors. Talk to other patients. Learn. Like, knowledge is power. Learn from other people. Learn from people that have gone through the similar things that you're going through. And most importantly, just listen to yourself. Listen to your body. Listen to how you feel. And through doing all of that, I truly believe that you can all get yourself back to having a long and very, very normal life. So thank you very much. I'm happy that, I don't know if we have time for questions, but yeah, happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much, Mike. That was amazing. Does anyone have any questions that they'd like to ask now to Mike? We have a few minutes for some questions.
I've never been asked that before. I don't know. Yeah, somehow, like, I've met him before, like, distantly, but I don't know exactly how. Yeah. I forgot we're in Philly, so that's a...
What does your current workout look like physically?
Yeah, so I do a mix of a lot of different things. I run, but I'm not like, I never sprint. I'm more like do like longer, drawn out runs where I get my heart rate up to a certain point and it stays at that point. I lift, but I'm never, and again, this is me individually. I never put myself in a situation where I'm struggling to lift. So I never want to be in a situation where I'm trying to like bench press and I'm struggling to push up a rep because I don't want to put strain on my heart. So it's more like lighter weight, high rep. I know it's hard to tell just by looking at me, but yeah, it's more, it's just, and it's not as intense. Like, I don't do any like Orange Theory. I think those things are great. They're just not for me because I don't really need to be pushed by a coach anymore. It's just kind of like I'm doing it on my own. I do a lot of hiking, a lot of biking, just things that I don't think I'm ever in a situation where I'm in the middle of a workout and I can't carry out a full conversation with somebody.
Oh, I'm coming over there.
I know you talked about how cardiac rehab helped you through like the body and exercise.
Yeah.
How did you emotionally get through, the diagnosis and all of the obstacles that you had to overcome?
Yeah, good question. I would say a couple things. Number one was my relationship with my doctors. I'm really lucky. My pediatric cardiologist was awesome. I see Dr. Marin in Boston. He's awesome. Dr. Iyer was awesome. And, so I think just like them educating my family on the condition and me knowing about it helped. I think just the thing that's helped the most is getting myself to kind of act like be a normal person again. Like for a while I wasn't, and like I talked about like but starting to be active again was a big help. Like for me, that was my whole life was working out. So being able to do that again helped. I think, to be honest with you, being involved with the American Heart Association helped me a lot. Like I felt like I had a real purpose, and like doing this within a heartbeat helps a lot because I believe it's my purpose in life. And one suggestion I have for patients is to get involved somehow. Not everybody can do all these different things, but I think I think a lot of people search their whole lives for a real purpose, and I think being a patient of one of these diseases, you are kind of given a purpose that you can kind of support, and that helped me a lot.
Mike, do you do any kind of motivational speaking for schools at all? Because I feel like the story that you're delivering, one, you're just really super entertaining, which just makes it fun. But you also have like a really good message. And whether a kid actually suffers for something with cardiomyopathy or some other condition, it's just showing, the perseverance that you need. So do you do any motivational speaking at schools?
Yeah, I have. The other side of my life is I've tried to really get more of a speaking career going. It hasn't progressed as much as I'd like it to, but I have spoken in schools. I've done a lot of high schools. I've done some colleges. I've done some middle schools. So I've done a decent amount of it, and the message is kind of tailored a little differently. So it kind of like obviously I'm in front of patients right now, but I am I kind of change it so it kind of is more relatable to someone that might not have heart disease or not have anything wrong with them, just to life in general. So definitely, yeah. Someone back there now, raise your.
I'll go back.
I'm curious, you mentioned that you had brothers and your father had started this basketball organization or a camp. What effect did finding out about your heart condition have on your parents when this was so entrenched in like who you were as a family? Yeah,
so everybody handled it differently. So we kind of talked about in the adult track about how men and women handle things differently. It was like, so my mom was outwardly emotional and wanted us to go to family therapy and spoke about it, was like next to me when we were doing all these speaking things, speaking as a parent. My dad does not say much about it, and my brother my brother's 13 years old, and I'm gonna tell a quick story. So a police officer walked in after I'm rushed off to the hospital, and the police officer said that he was there to, report on the death of a 17-year-old that had collapsed. And my brother was 13, and my best friend was 17, and they heard him. My brother's never said a word about it to me. So, and that's not healthy. So, we've handled it. It was really hard. I think it put a lot of initial tension on, my mom being outwardly emotional, my dad being reserved, me not wanting to talk about it, my brother not wanting to talk about it, but my mom really wanting to. So I think they definitely struggled with it. I know one of the things my mom does, and I'll say this as well, she does talk to other moms because it's a different type of keeping your kids safe. I'm 30 years old, and my mom still's checking in on me. I'm like, come on, but that's the way moms are. But yeah, I think there's a different level of as a parent, you want to have control of everything your kid does, and my mom lost control, and she struggled with that for a while. I know she still has some PTSD of that day and struggles with it, but it's obviously better. I don't know if I'm really answering your question, but it was just like honestly, I think it was hard. Like, it was hard for our family. Like, I don't think it's good that my brother doesn't really speak of it. I don't think it's great that my dad doesn't speak of it, but that's who they are, and, we can't really force them to. I think everybody kind of handles it differently, and, you just try to support each other as the best you can. So.
This is a little off topic, but have you ever tried stand-up?
Stand-up?
Yeah, I think you're perfect.
No.
You're a natural.
No. I wish. No. 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 I wish I could be in a band and I have a terrible voice. So I like speaking because it feels like I have an audience. That's where it ends. But yeah.
Mike, I have a question. With relationships, and women, just relationships in general. Yeah. How do you actually approach it? Do you approach it? Is it an issue?
Yeah. So it's never been an issue. So when I had my open heart surgery, I was dating someone very seriously, and I think it's that was a weird, kind of like a different thing, right? You're a 25-year-old guy, and she was 24 at the time. You don't really go through like a life and death situation with like a young, at that age. You're not really supposed to when you're in a relationship. And I think, like I said, I think it's really important to be upfront. And I think if someone is going to be hesitant about your condition in the beginning, then it just isn't going to work. So I'm honest with people. I've been honest with people about it, since I've had it, and I haven't really come across people that have been like, but I mean, I'm sure that happens though, because it's a lot. It's a lot to know that someone that you're dating has this disease that could potentially have them go into cardiac arrest in front of you. So I think it's important to be honest though, and I think if someone doesn't accept that, then you just know that they're not the right person for you. So, cool. All right. Thank you.
We have time for one or two more questions before we wrap up with Mike.
Since you got diagnosed at a later age, does your organization work with schools for like pre-screenings and checkups?
Yeah, so that's our project that we're working on right now. So we're trying to start community-based heart screenings in Connecticut. And I know this is a little bit of a debate amongst people, but we believe in it. And, we're going to try to screen. I think we're going to set the ages at like 12 to 19, open them up to a community. We have some cardiologists and some partnerships that we have working right now, and we're hoping to host our first one about a year from now at Quinnipiac University. They have a really cool building, and we're going to try to just open it up to everybody in the area. And then our hope is to kind of just go in different counties in Connecticut. You have like a New Haven County, a Hartford County, and try to detect these conditions before someone is in the situation I was in.
Okay, I think we've got all the questions. Thank you
Awesome.
so much.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.